Can you guys hear me? Hello, welcome everyone to CRI2101 Critical Analysis, and this is already week 12, ladies and gentlemen. Alright, so what I want to do today is this week I'm hoping to upload 2 videos. So the first video today, I will be focusing on sorry, the theories or things that will be coming out and will be tested in your test 2, which will be next week, okay, which are what we learned last week, which is on fallacies, and also today, which is on too much emotion. All right, now before I start with the new lesson, I will be discussing some answers from our exercise last week. And then I will jump into evaluating premises, where you think about whether this is true or not. Okay, are you guys ready? Now, before we start our class, I always, as I mentioned, go back to your assessment. Yeah, because at the end of the day, really, what you care is the marks, unfortunately. In the longer run, I'm hoping that you guys are able to sort of like take in the theories that we learned in the CRI into evaluating judgment, evaluating things that are going around you, and think about, in the longer run, I definitely want you guys to use, this critical thinking skills that you guys learn from this course into your workplace, or even thinking about the party that will be ruling our will be ruining our country one day, and even to decide on some decisions. So in a longer run, the sort of like hidden curriculum that I really want you guys to achieve as a teacher is for you to adapt any of these skills that you learn, or maybe just becoming more aware on all sort of arguments that are shooting towards you one day. Okay, but as for the shorter term, which I see a lot of you guys are motivated towards to, because you guys are student, is definitely your marks. So what are the remaining assessments that you have in this course? Basically, there are only 2 more left. You guys are done with your group project on your case study. You guys have done your tutorials. Now you are only left with your test 2, which is next week. It's only 10% and it's an open book test. So in week 13 next week on 16th of April, which is Thursday, within 1 hour, you guys have to complete an online test. It will be an open book test where you guys are able to look and sort of like refer back to all of your slides or even your notes that you have, and you have to complete a very easy and straightforward 20 fill in the blanks questions. So it's very easy, and if you feel like you want to improve your marks, please do well in that one. Okay, so that is test 2, that's 10%. And as well, I also have another announcement. Next week, I will be opening an open session if you guys have any troubles, if you have any questions, and I will put all of the description in the announcement so that it's easier. I will give you a link to our open session next week, so that in that 1 hour, you guys can go ahead and ask me any kind of questions. All right? Before your test, obviously. And you also have one more assignment, which is in your group assignment, and it's about trying to see or trying to detect any sort of like manipulation coming from the advertisement, and that will be done in a separate video, which I hopefully will upload at the end of this week. And I want you guys to start doing about this assignment. And as compared to before, the instruction that I gave you guys is that you guys would have to do a bit of presentation, but we won't be doing that. So your assignment for advertising manipulation will solely be based on your write-up. Okay, so just a quick updates. I have marked your argumentative essay. Obviously, I have put it on Blackboard, the marks. You can check your marks. I also have looked at your case study Some did very well, but some also are still struggling to get marks. So please do well in your remaining assessments, just so that you guys can pass this course. Okay, let me be frank, your reflection is not doing very good. When I see it, you guys are merely stating some facts. You guys are, doing very good research. I must admit, you're doing a very good research. You tell me what happened, blah, blah, blah. Steve Jobs did this, Oprah did that, blah, blah, blah. But what's lacking is your personal touch. What you think about it. What you think as a student, or even as a person or a member of the society, because really this is a critical thinking class. You should be reflecting on what you think and give out your own arguments and judgment about the cases of Steve Jobs or even Oprah Winfrey on that matter. So it's something that is lacking in your reflection. Do not worry, unfortunately that has been done. Just wanna throw out some things to you guys so that you guys are aware on certain things, so that you can do better in the remaining assessment, so that you can get higher marks. All right, so what our remainings are, again, test 2 and also write up for a new group assignment. Now for this assignment, I'm hoping that you guys can work in the same group as your case study, because we don't have much time. And I think you guys are very familiar with your friends, you're very familiar with your style and working ethics of your friends, so that I'm hoping that you guys can work it out. And I see that you guys are cooperating very well, and I really am grateful that you guys are doing a good job. Okay, but if there is still any problems when it comes to your group members or anything, contribution, blah blah blah, please do let me know. All right. Okay, let's move on. Let me talk about the online task, which is I give out a few scenarios, and I want to see if you guys can understand, or if you guys are able to pinpoint and tell me what are those scenarios about. So here we have this one, this one, this one, this one, this one. Yeah. Let's have a look at the answers. So for the first one, it's very obvious that it's begging the question. Of course, my salary is higher than yours because my work is important. You're asking me why it's important? Well, my salary is higher, isn't it? So when it comes to begging the question, always remember that it was go back round and round and round. So basically, the premises or the formula to begging the question is that A is because of B and B is because of A. So really, they're repeating the same thing over and over again. Therefore, it's begging the question. All right, so let's see number 2 now. Do you see the ad? It's so sad. I cried. The group said that it will help those poor kids. We can send them some money. This is very obvious, guys. This is appealing to pity. You use the emotion. You use a bit of like a pityness, something that is very affection-based situation. That is obviously appeal to pity. All right. At C number 3, it's okay to kick him because everyone bullies him. Now, because of the clause everyone bullies him, you are trying to say 2 wrongs make a right. So you want to justify your wrongdoings by saying that everybody is doing the same thing, hence it's fine. That's very obvious. It's 2 wrongs make a right. Let's see the next one. So get healthy, shiny, hold with Pantene hairspray. The vitamin formula penetrates to make your hair stronger and shiny. Definitely will make you look good. And I think a lot of students might get confused with this one. This is obviously a bandwagon. So what's the bandwagon means? So obviously when you want to describe hair, a very nice hair, is something that associated with very shiny, very strong. So you are using the most accepted characteristics or sort of like adjectives that you would describe to a hair would be shiny and stronger, and trying to say that you will look good with it, therefore definitely will make you look good. Now here is definitely the key point to the bandwagon. So you want to be accepted in the society, and therefore it's bandwagon. You want to be called as the cool kids. All right. Let's see number 5. Mom, I broke your precious cooking pot. But remember, I've always been a good kid to you, right? Don't get angry. So red herring is always associated when you want to, distract, the whole point of it with something else. So instead of focusing on I broke your cooking pot, so you brought up another distraction, which is I've always been a good kid to you. So this is a very bad argument because you're trying to distract from the actual essence or premise that you should be talking about. Okay, so when you're giving some sort of a distraction, it's definitely red herring. Right, number 6. You want to teach me math? I don't think so. Your math is not that good. So this is very obvious when a person is trying to advise on you. Instead of looking at the advice, you look at that person. Therefore, it's look who's talking. All right. So this is something that will be very similar to your test 2. It's a short answer. Fill in the blanks. So basically, you have to type it. When you type your answers, make sure that you don't do typo, because Blackboard will mark it, not me. So when we are dealing with technology, when we're dealing with robots, really, if it's wrong, if it's a typo, it's still wrong. Okay, so before you key in your answers, make sure that it's spelled correctly, including the spaces. All right, so go ahead and have a look on the slides that we learned on last week, so that you know what is the actual spelling and how is it. Okay, so please make sure that you study that one. All right, now let's get into another, let's jump right into another type of fallacies, or something that we can say that can make your argument weak or bad, which is too much emotion. Okay, you can see that person's crying, it's just like me. It's because you're overwhelmed and too much emotion. Like, okay, let's start with, so basically, as a human being, we really have to agree that emotions do and does play a very important role in our reasoning. But we cannot make a good decision if we don't consider the significance of our emotional life. But you have to remember that we should never ever get swayed entirely because of our emotions. This is very important, because even if you have a certain perspective, certain attitude, certain emotion towards one thing, please do not be distracted with your personal emotion. Okay, and in this emotion or appeal to emotion, there are 5 things that you guys should know. Appeal to pity, appeal to spite, appeal to fear, call in your debt, and also appeal to vanity. So there are only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 appeals to emotion that you have to understand. Let's go into the first one, appeal to pity. So appeal to pity, as it said in the name itself, it's trying to make you feel sorry about something. Let's take a look at the example here. A kindergarten teacher said to a parent, I know that you asked us not to give any candy or desserts, but there's a birthday party today and all the kids are having chocolate cupcakes. Peter feels so left out. He's the only one without a cupcake. He's just bawling his eye out. He was crying all the way. Would it be okay if I give him dessert just this once? So you're trying to make the situation very bad by saying that Peter is crying and then everyone else is having chocolate cupcakes and he doesn't. So you are just making the parent to agree with you on this one by giving this kind of appeal to pity. Okay, it's very straightforward. Second, let's jump into appeal to fear. So like it said, it's very straightforward. It's trying to instill a fear in your judgment. So let's take a look at this example of advertisement. A lonely road. Your car breaks down. It's dark. Aren't you glad that you bought a Samsung brand cellulite phone? Basically saying that with that cell phone, you are able to because it's so good. You can call somebody using your phone, basically. So it's very a poor advertisement, because to be honest, regardless of any kind of cell phone, having a cell phone in such big or important or really emergency situation does not matter. If you have a Samsung, if you have a Nokia, even does not matter. As long as you can call somebody, you can call the insurance, it's fine. But have a look at this advertisement. It's trying to instill the fear of here, a lonely road. Your car breaks down. It's dark. So as you can see, it's giving three situations or three description on one thing that happened, so that can instill fear on you. Aren't you glad that you bought a Samsung brand cellular phone? So as you can see here, as I mentioned, it's quite ridiculous in a way that regardless of any brand of phone, it does not matter, because all you need is to call the insurance company. But what this advertisement is trying to give you is actually appealing to fear. All right, let's take a look at the next example. Next appeal to emotion. We have appeal to spite. So when it comes to appealing to spite, you basically try to revenge. Now let's take a look at this example here. We have three people here. We have John. John say, "Hi Tom, what's wrong with your car?" And then Tom said, "Oh, the battery is dead. Can you please help me to push it? Harry will steer." Sorry. And John said, "Sure." Then Zoe said, "What are you doing, John? Don't you remember that Tom wouldn't help you to fix the fans last week?" So you are trying to give a bit of a argument that why John should not help Tom, because the last time Tom wouldn't help you to fix your fans. Why would you help him? So basically what Zoe is doing right here is that Zoe is trying to give a hope of revenge. Okay, so but it's very been rejected as bad by some people on moral grounds. So basically it's also invoking the principle of two wrongs can make a right, by saying that everyone else is not doing this, so why would you do this? So it could be something similar as well. All right, now let's go on to the next one, which is call in debts. So what's a call in debts? Have you ever had a situation, maybe your boyfriend, maybe your girlfriend, or really somebody, your crush could be, like suddenly they get too nice and they give you some presents, and then when you guys ended the relationship, suddenly you started asking for that present. Okay, something the same thing here, like when you ask them or you be nice to that person, and then you call in back what you have done in the past. Let's take a look at this example here. How can you go to the movies with Harry and not watch the game with me? Don't you remember how I helped you wash your car last week? So here, basically, the argument that is being given here is that this person is recalling back the good deeds that she or he has done before. Don't you remember how I helped you to wash your car last week? It's really a very, very bad argument, because it's not really related in anyhow. It's just trying to appeal to your emotion in a way that, oh, I helped you, you should have be nice to me, some sort. Okay, so it's also running into the formula that you should believe or do something because you owe somebody a favor. All right, so next is appeal to vanity. So this is, to be honest, this is something that a lot of students did tell me or give to me, so shame on you guys, because I know the trick. So a lot of students, I don't know, it could be true, or you just wanted to have a small chat with me, just a small talk, but When you say this to your teacher, to your lecturer, I really deserve a passing grade. It's not even A, it's passing. Passing grade in your course, miss, because I know that you're a very fair grader. You've always been terrific to everybody in this class. I really admire on how you teach the class, and I really enjoy your teaching very, very much. So it would be a very, very pity if I don't give something, if I don't have something to show for it. Okay, right, so this is basically very vain. You try to make somebody feel good or to make somebody feel vain about it. Therefore, it's a feel-good argument. Okay, it's trying to give an argument just so that you can make that person feels good about it. So it's basically in a very rude way of saying you try to suck up to some people. Okay, unfortunately, a lot of people do this. It can be nice sometimes, but it's a bad argument. It's a very bad tactic. Okay, so it's trying to satisfy people's desire to look good and also to feel good. All right, so to wrap up about appeal to emotion, you have to remember each appeal to emotion have a prescriptive conclusion. What does it mean? When we say a prescriptive conclusion, we're saying that you have to do something. Now you learn about prescriptive and also descriptive, yeah? So when it's trying to appeal to emotion, there's always a conclusion that entails a prescription. Try to convince someone that he or she should do something. That is how you differentiate appeals to emotion and fallacies. All right? Okay? Now, let's go right into try to evaluating your premises by asking, is that true? Okay, so when you try to evaluate your premises, there was always a good reason to believe in those premises. Okay, and sometimes the premises, or very often, is much more plausible, much more accepted with a lot of evidence than the conclusion. So as we remember before, argument can be valid or strong. So strong is an example of invalid argument, but the premises are very, very good. Now let's take a look into how we can decide whether or not we want to believe in a claim. So you have to evaluate the claim that people give. All right. So first, you can accept that the claim is true. Second, you can reject that the claim and say it as a false, or you can suspend the judgment. All right. But be very, very careful, because not believing into it is not the same than believing that it is false. Okay. So what you believe does not necessarily mean that it's false. Secondly, not having enough evidence does not mean that the evidence is false. Okay? When you say that there is not much evidence, all you need to do is that you can suspend the judgment in a way that you wait until all of the evidences are there. When all of the facts has been checked, then only you give your judgment. All right? Now, let's take a look at accepting and rejecting claims. So there are a few criteria when it comes to accepting or rejecting claims. First one is based on your own personal experience. Second one is based on other sources. So first, trying to accept an argument based on personal experience. So when we talk about our personal experience, because we are the one who judging the argument, our most reliable source of information is basically our own experience, because it's firsthand, because you're the one who's feeling it, you're the one who is, experiencing it. So it's always best to have what we can experience, because it's firsthand, whereas everything else is second-handed. All right. So, but you have to remember that there are also times when we cannot trust our own experience. Now, it can be a little bit contradictory to what I said earlier, but what I'm saying is that there are circumstances when we cannot trust our own personal experience. How? For example, when our memory is not even much reliable, because sometimes memory can be deceiving, okay? And the state of our world around us can also affect our observation. So let's take a look at an example of some of the instances when we cannot trust our own personal experience. For example, the other driver did not put on a turn signal. So we believe that that person does not give our own turn signal, and basically we are evoked with emotion because we are experiencing it, but you don't know what's happened to that person. Maybe it's broken. Yeah, so it's always based on our experience, what we believe in our perspective. And another example here is when you see, or maybe a child sees a magician that cut a lady into half. Sometimes it can be deceitful as well, because I don't think that's the real thing, right? It's there's a trick behind it. Therefore, even if your eyes seeing it, but sometimes it can be deceiving. Yeah. Next, so let's take a look at an example here. So here you have a very old lady, like a harmony here as a auntie, or maybe a nene, like a grandma here, trying to see who is the, I don't know, thief or something that happened. So this is trying to recognize who is the thief here. And really, if you look at this person's face, you can see how unreliable this grandmother is, because all of the suspects have the same feature and exactly the same. So this is actually a burden of proof on how unreliable our memory can be. Now, it's very interesting because in this cartoon, this auntie or this grandma is old. So in a way, what it's trying to say is that sometimes your memory can deceive you. So you are very confident that, I don't know, who is this person pointing out to? Maybe this one is the guilty one, but really it's all the same. So if you can see the frustration that this police officer had in his face, like, oh, okay. So therefore, we can accept a claim if we know that it is true based on our experience. We can reject a claim if we know that it is false from our experience. However, we also have a good reason to actually doubt on our memory or our perception, and the claim that contradicts to the experience of ours. And there is a good argument, or there is a good theory that go against the claim. Okay? I'm just gonna shout out or just give you guys some questions just to prove on the theory that we have back then. So did you guys remember the last time that we had this class? Try to answer these questions. Okay? Am I a male or a female? Hair color, obviously you cannot see my hair color. What's my eye color? What's my approximate height? Can you guys answer these questions? Very likely that you can answer this because this is quite evident. But what about this? Do you remember if I bring any kind of backpack in class? If I do, of any kind of bag, can you describe it? Have you seen me using notes when I'm teaching? Do I always go early in class? Have I worn a hat? Am I left-handed or right-handed? So basically here, I'm testing your memory. I want to look whether or not you can remember the last time that we had the class face-to-face. Can you give me these answers? Maybe some of you guys can. Some of you guys cannot. What about these questions? Did you remember the classroom that we had? How many windows? How many doors? How many walls? Is there any pictures in our class? How high is the ceiling? How many chairs do we have in our classroom? How many students showed up in the last time that we had class? Is there any chalkboard? Is there any lectern? Any waste baskets? What kind of floor do we have? Did you get out early in my class? So basically, as I mentioned, sometimes it can be very easy for you to remember things. Sometimes when you don't focus or when you don't think about it, okay, sometimes you can forget. That is why I'm trying to prove to you sometimes our memory can be unreliable as well. Okay, now let's talk about, okay, we're done talking about accepting an argument based on our personal experience. Now we want to talk about accepting an argument based on what are the other sources that we can have. So we can accept a claim made by someone we know and we trust, but that person must have an authority to that topic, to that argument. Okay, so can you really trust a friend who lives in, some argy-bargy, some weird area, see a person that has been, gambling and selling drugs? Maybe you can. Maybe that friend has lived the life of, this argy-bargy life, that, that kind of gangster life that that person has seen. So when your mom tells you to major in business so that you can get ahead in life, can you accept it? Maybe you shouldn't reject it, but you can suspend the judgment once you get more information. Okay, so maybe you can reject, maybe you can accept, maybe you can suspend your judgment because your mother, is your mother majored in business? Does your mother know quite a few things about business? Maybe your mom herself is a businesswoman. Maybe you can accept it. Maybe you reject it because your mom, do not have any, information or even knowledge about business. Or if you can even suspend the judgment until you get more information. Maybe you want to go online and have a look at success rate among people who major in business. Okay, so we have here a situation where a surgeon general announces that smoking is bad for health. Should we accept or not? Definitely we should accept because this surgeon is an expert in health, and maybe it's reasonable for us to accept this argument. So we can accept a claim made by a reputable authority that we can trust as an expert on this kind of claim who has absolutely no motive at all to mislead. So let's take a look at an example here. We have a doctor that has been hired by a tobacco company that sells smokes. It says that there is no direct proof that smoking is addictive or causing lung cancer. Should we accept this or not? Does this person has a motive behind this? Obviously, this person is obviously an expert, because in health, because this person is a doctor. He or she has a medical certificate, medical degree. Therefore, we can say that this person is an expert in the area. However, he does has a motive to mislead our argument. Therefore, there is no reason for us to accept the claim. Right. So we can also accept a claim from a reputable journal or reference sources. This is very direct, very straightforward. So remember, you have to go to a very high reputable journals. So there are different kinds of journal. We have cited, non-cited. We have Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So there are differences between cited and non-cited journal, and it's a difference. So go to the most reputable journals. For example, here we have National Geographic Channel. So maybe it's much more less reliable because they pay for their own research. What does it mean by they pay their own research? When they say that they pay for their research, they depend on donation, they depend on sponsorship. Most probably they do research based on the sponsorship, therefore can be a little bit biased. Right, therefore you have to remember not to get fooled. Okay, so next, this is a very, very interesting question that we have here because we live in a world of social media. Okay, so we can accept a claim in a media outlet that are usually reliable. So we have a few factors for us to evaluate the news report if the outlet has been proven reliable in the past, if the outlet does not have a bias on this topic. So bias often follows the money, as I mentioned. If you have sponsorship, if you have any kind of sponsorship, you're more likely to become more biased. And if the source is being quoted as named. Now, I want to ask you guys some questions. Now, I think we live in a generation where we don't really read newspaper, on like a hard copy. When I know that our parents used to, read or buy a newspaper from, from the market or even the kedai in front of your house. But nowadays, we live in a generation where maybe we look at the news from online. But as you know, even in the Star or New States Times, you have to pay for online, and we don't often go for that. And I don't know about you guys, but I often get to know the latest news from social media. But my question is, you might get some information from the Twitter, from the Facebook, from even, some forwarded WhatsApp messages or even others. But what are, in your opinion, what are the definition of reliable outlets for this news? I will open a discussion board and I want to hear from you guys. If you look at Twitter, for example, which account do you think that is reliable, and how do you know if that account is reliable? Yeah, if you refer to, or you got some information from Facebook, how do you know if that information is reliable? I'm gonna give like a discussion board, and I wanna keep the conversation going. I want to listen to what you guys think about this. Okay, right. Now let's moving on. We say that we can reject a claim that contradicts to the other claim that we know is absolutely correct or absolutely true. So, for example, a buddy or a friend told you that not to go to a restaurant with a friend because that friend has an AIDS, and say that you can catch AIDS, but you can catch the disease by eating the same table with her. Now, I think a lot of machi will probably come out to you and say this, but in fact that this is wrong because you read from a public health pamphlet that AIDS cannot be transmitted via contact, but rather it's much more on different other ways of doing it. So this is a very reliable expert because the pamphlet was written or being distributed by the AIDS Center. Therefore, it's a very, very reliable expert. Hence, you can simply reject the claim because you know that it contradicts to the claim that we know is true. Okay, so in summary, what we can say when we try to accept or even reject a claim, so there are two ways of accepting or rejecting a claim. First one is via personal experience. Second is through other sources. Okay, first one is via personal experience. Second is through other sources. So let's take a look at here first. We can accept the claim if we know that the claim is true based on our own personal experience. But we know that the claim is false by rejecting it because it's coming from our experience as well. But please remember that we also have some good reason to doubt our memory and our perception. Okay? Alright? So we can also reject a claim when the claim is contradict to other claims that we know happen to be true. Okay? So let's take a look at other sources. So the claim that is made by somebody that we know and we trust and has the authority of that kind of topic or argument, we can accept it. Number two, so if a claim that is made by a very reputable authority that we can trust or is an expert in that area and has absolutely no motive at all to mislead, we can accept the claim. Third, when that claim has been moved, has been done, or has been highlighted in a few journal articles or very reliable references, we can accept it. Lastly, we can accept the argument or the claim if the claim is being said or being emphasized in a reliable media source that has absolutely no motive to mislead or the original source is named. Hence, we know where the source is coming from. Okay? So that is basically the summary of it. Now, let's move forward into trying to suspend a judgment. So when you want to suspend a judgment, it's basically you to wait to validate the facts before trying to make judgment. Now, this is very important. If you go to court, very often that you listen, the judge won't immediately give you the rulings. That judge sometimes will give the lawyers or even the prosecutors some time for them to think and give evidences. Why? This is an example of suspend judgment, because when we try to suspend judgment does not mean that we entirely reject the judgment. We simply wait until the facts has been proven or validated. From the facts, knowing that the facts is correct or not, then only we want to decide whether or not we want to accept or we want to reject the claim. Got it? So this is also a very, very important approach. I think a lot of people do not do this. When you wait until all of the facts has been validated, has been proven, then only you make the judgment. Okay? So, let's take a look at example. Lee was asked whether or not Lee wants to accept, reject, or suspend on a judgment on certain claims. Let's take a look at first one here. Susie prefers to go out with athletes. Okay, so Lee can accept it because it's based on personal experience. Lee knows about it because Susie personally told Lee about it. Therefore, Lee can accept this claim. Number 2, somebody said that Japanese are really good at math. Now, Lee can reject this argument or this claim because Lee knows that it's just a stereotype, because Lee also personally knows somebody who are Japanese but really not good in math. Okay, so it's much more on stereotyping. It cannot be overgeneralized to anybody. Okay, let's take a look at another claim here saying that crocodiles are found only in Asia and Africa. So because Lee does not know exactly if this is correct or not, Lee has to go out and research more. So basically, Lee is suspending the judgment because Lee does not, maybe Lee remember hearing about it. Maybe it's true that crocodile only is available in Africa and US, but not sure. Therefore, Lee has given or have decided to suspend the judgment and make further research about it. Okay, so this is an example here on how you reject, you accept, or even you suspend a judgment. Now, let's take a look at advertising. Now, this is just an intro to what you guys will be doing, and I will make a separate slides or even a separate lecture about advertising, which is linked to your assignment next week. Okay, so let's take a look at many advertisements or arguing with the conclusion whether or not you need to buy the product or frequent establishment on the service itself. So some claim are accurate, but some are not. Even with the internet, even with the internet, do you have any reason to believe everything that people write on the internet? Simply because there are some channels that can be trusted in a way that it's much more reliable, because there are people who we call as gatekeepers. So if you guys learn about media, gatekeepers are very, very important. Gatekeepers are the people who make sure that the facts are correct and absolutely true before the reliable sources start distributing about the topic or even the research. Okay, so but the problem with the internet is that anybody can contribute to it. So there are also some pages, there are also some sources that are not reliable in a way that you can simply say what you said. That could be based on emotions. Okay, so for example, here there is a claim that people say George W. Bush has the lowest IQ among the presidents of the past 50 years. How do you know that this is correct unless you have a solid proof that has a result of George W. Bush done sort of like a test to prove that his IQ is very low and compared to other 50 more presidents. So sometimes it's you need valid evidence and also proof, or before you accept or reject the claim, or sometimes it's best for you to suspend the judgment before you make the absolute decision. Okay, so hopefully at the end of this lesson, I'm hoping that you guys will be able to think whether or not you want to accept, you want to reject, or even a better approach for you to suspend your judgment. But sometimes in real life, we have the constraint of time where you need to decide on a few things. Okay, so I hope that you guys will be able to use on what you learn in this class to think and make better decisions that can be high stake, that can determine if the decision is good or not. Okay, right, so that's all that I have today for accepting, rejecting, and suspend a claim, and even appealing to emotion. So remember, appealing to emotion will come out in your test. What we learned today will come out in your test. Therefore, make sure that you guys study. Make sure you know the differences between fallacies and all of the appeal to emotion, blah blah blah. I will make a separate online session in a way that it's open session. I will give you guys a link about it in a bit. So thank you so much for joining me. Make sure that you guys study. If you have any problem, as I mentioned, just relay it to your group representative, and then that group representative can ask those questions in our WhatsApp group. Okay, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you so much. Take care.